go ahead, Joe has just, in the last week, gotten back from Brussels, Belgium, and so it's all fresh. He's going to tell us about NATO.
Well, first of all, does it help with this thing on?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, you can hear it through the speakers and so forth, and it's not distorted.
It makes you echo a little.
Makes me echo.
You want me to turn it up or down?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll try to keep my hands away. As Trudy was mentioning about the UNAC conference, UNAC's really the reason that I went over to Belgium. It was only a very short trip. I was only there for 4 days. The reason UNAC was the reason that I went over there was because in 2012, so I'll start there a little bit. 2012, NATO had its summit in the United States. It had its summit in Chicago. And Obama was our president, and Chicago was the city. He was going to showcase Chicago and thought it would be a great place to have a NATO conference. And not only was he going to have a NATO conference, but he was going to have a conference of the G8 nations, the main capitalist economies in the world. This was going to be in Chicago, and it was going to be, each was going to be a week long. And so what he didn't count on was the anti-war movement decided we were going to be there too. And UNAC, my organization, actually sponsored the activities that were going on there. We sponsored a demonstration, and 15,000 people demonstrated. As I understand, still to date, it is the largest anti-NATO demonstration that ever took place. And when it happened, there was questions of whether or not the United States was going to have an anti-NATO demonstration. It had demonstrations against our own government, which does a lot of wars. But NATO is more or less of a foreign entity. In Europe, it's more of a, it's the common target. So people were unsure whether or not we could do it. And as the time got closer for the actions, they were clear they were growing a lot. People were coming in on buses from different places, and it was turning out to be something. And so the city government of Chicago started warning people, this is going to be a violent activity. It's really interesting to me how they portray the peace activists as the violent ones. And who was protesting? NATO, which is an armed force. Its purpose is weapons and war, and yet they're the peaceful ones. So in the week leading up to the NATO action, people poured into Chicago, and there was a lot of activity. There was some civil disobedience. There was different kinds of protests, but it was all peaceful. Yet the government warned that we were going to be violent. In fact, it got more and more shrill about this. And they told people in downtown, who lived in downtown Chicago, that they better leave because these violent protesters are coming. So we kept on putting out press releases and so forth saying we're not going to be violent. They denied us permits. We went to the city council meetings and had battles with the city council over the right to have a permit. The media and unions and others got on our side. And unions decided that if they were going to take permits away from us, they could stop them from picketing. So they came on our side, and we got a lot of support from civil liberties organizations and so forth, and they finally had to give us a permit. And we had a big rally in downtown Chicago, and then we marched quite a ways, and the rally was led by veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan wars. And at the end of the rally, they did a dramatic action. They had set up a stage as close as we could get to the NATO, where the NATO meeting was taking place. And one by one, these vets went onto the stage and threw their medals in the direction of NATO and made a promise that they would never fight another war again. And this was carried on a lot of the news media around the world, and it got quite a reputation. Well, anyway, some of the groups that have traditionally in Europe, especially protested NATO, came to that event, and we, leadership of UNAC, met them. In the beginning, we had some problems, and it's the problem that has been long-standing in the anti-war movement in the United States, and when I went to Brussels, I saw that the same problem exists in the anti-war movement in Europe. And I call that problem sectarianism. That one group will not work with another. That, well, you have this position on that, so we can't work with you on this. And you have these people in this group, we don't like those people, and so we can't work with that. And we've seen that here too. We've seen people say to organizations in the Albany area, well, you shouldn't endorse that meeting, or you shouldn't endorse that because we don't like that particular organization or different group. And I'm not going to talk about who and when all that happened, but that happened a number of times. And it's a very common thing. It's also something that the United States government has instigated in the left. If you read the Coattail papers that came out about the period of the 1960s and 70s and the anti-war movement and the Black Panther movement and the left movements and progressive movements took place, the government sent people into these organizations and they tried to split them up. Well, that one is too white, and that one doesn't have enough women leadership, and that one is this, and they actually caused splits and so forth. And it's gone over for quite a long time. They did that in Chicago too. In Chicago, there were some groups that might be more inclined to be susceptible to doing some violence, such as some anarchist groups and so forth. In all cases, I do not believe that they're the ones that do violence. However, they sent FBI agents into these organizations in Chicago, and they tried to get them to do something illegal. And into one particular anarchist group where there were a bunch of young kids, really young kids, like 17 years old, things like this, they had this man and this woman, young, attractive people who were really FBI agents, who tried to convince them that if you really want to oppose NATO, what you're doing, marching here, and these peaceful actions and all this kind of stuff, is the wrong way to do it. You've got to show how determined you are. We can show you how to make Molotov cocktails, they said. And they got 5 people to say, never do it, but say, okay, we'll go along with it. And those people became known as the NATO 5 in Chicago, and 3 of them are still in jail. They never did it, but they arrested them. It's very much like what they did with the Muslim communities all around the country, like right here in Albany, where they send FBI agents into the mosques and they say, look, you should do this action, and you should do that action. And people say, no, we don't want to do that, and so forth. And then if they could not get them to do it, they bribe them. They take people that are poor, like they did down in Newburgh. These people had no money at all, and they said, we'll give you $5,000 if you come along with us and do this. No, I'm not going to do it. I'll give you $20,000. No, I'm not going to. They finally got up to $250,000, and these 3 people in Newburgh said, okay, we'll do it. But they spoke among themselves and said, we're not going to do this. We'll take this idiot's money, but we're not going to do it. But all they had to do was say yes. And they were arrested. And they're in jail for the rest of their lives. People in Albany are in jail for 15 years. There are hundreds throughout the country of Muslims that have been arrested, and most of them are kept in special Muslim prisons called CMUs, Communication Management Units. And they're very draconian type prisons, with like solitary confinement most of the time and so forth. So they did that in Chicago too. Well, in Chicago, we held there was some groups from the anti-war movement here, but mainly the European ones, decided to do a alternative summit, which is the traditional thing you do. You have a demonstration and an alternative summit where you talk about peace issues rather than war issues, and educate on what NATO is and what's wrong with NATO and why we need another kind of world and so forth. So here's UNAC that's organizing this demonstration, which turned out to be the largest anti-NATO demonstration. He said, well, we don't want you in our alternative summit. So we went and we built our own alternative summit with anti-war groups and with social justice groups and the Occupy movement in Chicago, which had grown pretty big and had actually had a whole building they took over, and that became the place where we held our alternative summit. And 800 people showed up for the alternative summit. It was great. The other alternative summit had 115. So some of the people came and said, well, we might have made a mistake. And some of them asked to speak at our alternative summit. So we did the opposite of what they did. And we said, of course. And they spoke. And after that, some of the groups kept in touch with UNAC. In particular, two of them. One was called No to War, No to NATO, which exists primarily in Europe. It's primarily run by people from Germany. And the other was called the World Peace Council. And the World Peace Council in the United States, the World Peace Council in countries all around the world has affiliates. In the United States, their affiliate is called the U.S. Peace Council. And the anti-war movement in the United States and most places in the world is very divided around certain issues, like Syria and Libya and Ukraine and things like this. But within UNAC, we discussed these issues out and came up with a position. Our position is primarily we focus on the United States. We're an anti-war group in the United States. We're not going to focus on what kind of government the people in Syria should have or the people in any other country. That is their right, and it would be a violation of their right of self-determination for us to try to dictate that, just like it would be for our government to try to dictate that, and our government tries to dictate that all over the world. So we took that position, and some of the groups, like the U.S. Peace Council, said that's the right position and joined UNAC. So after the Chicago event and with the U.S. Peace Council joining UNAC, we got a call from the World Peace Council and said, we're doing a summit, an alternative summit in Brussels. Will you come and speak? So I said, okay, I will come and speak. Talked to the rest of the leadership in UNAC, and they said, yep, we should go and let's go speak. Then I got a call from No to War, No to NATO, which was together with the World Peace Council in Chicago, and didn't want UNAC to be part of the alternative summit in Chicago. But now they're split with the World Peace Council, and it's over just those same issues that I talked about. So they were also organizing an alternative summit. And actually, after Chicago, they put me on their international coordinating committee. So I was on the international coordinating committee of No to War, No to NATO, but I did not involve myself or UNAC in these debates and fights that were going on a world level. So they called me up and said, will you speak at our conference too? So I had to say to both of them, yes, I will, but do you know I'm also going to speak at the other one? And they both agreed that that was an acceptable thing to do. So I went to Brussels to represent UNAC, and me and Ann Wright represented the U.S. peace movement in Brussels. And I was only there for a few days, so I don't have a lot about Brussels, and I don't have a lot of slides, but I will talk to you a little bit about show you what I do have, and talk a little bit about what happened, what I did there. This is the poster for the World Peace Council Alternative Summit, and I don't have the poster for the No to War, No to NATO, but this is their program. And so you could take a look at it, and you'll see both Enright and myself in that program. So NATO was to meet on Thursday. Trump was coming in to be at the NATO conference, so I made a mistake. It wasn't just me and Enright, it was me, Enright, and Trump. But he came on a different plane. And when I got there, it was really interesting. Trump has the same reputation in Brussels that he has here. So I got there, the thing was supposed to be on a Thursday. I got there on a Tuesday. On Wednesday, we were supposed to have the World Peace Council Summit. At the end of the day on Wednesday, we were supposed to have a mass demonstration. And then all day Thursday, we were supposed to have the No to War, No to NATO Summit. So I got there on Tuesday, and this is just a couple of pictures of Brussels. There's a street, and you can see by the McDonald's sign, you can't get too far from the United States. That's downtown Brussels. That's actually on the area. Those are folks that are starting to come together for the beginning of the march and rally that took place. And I don't know what that's not a sculpture. It's just part of the building. And in Brussels is the headquarters of NATO. And they just built a new NATO headquarters, which I didn't get to see. But it cost the people of Brussels $1.5 billion. And there was a lot of talk about it. Was it worth it? They could use it for other things. Brussels is a really interesting city. You heard of some terrorist activity that went on there. And I had read some stuff about it. And I had heard that there was serious discrimination against Muslims in Brussels. That you might have an MD or be an engineer or be a college professor, but if you were a Muslim in Brussels, you were a dishwasher or you swept the floor or something like that. And you wouldn't be called by your own name, you'd be called dishwasher or called, there was a lot of discrimination. There's a lot of racism in the same way there's racism, but towards a different population. There are blacks in Brussels, but Muslims are the main minority population. But I couldn't believe how many Muslims were in Brussels. There was a lot of Muslims in Brussels, everywhere you went. My hotel was in a Muslim community. I got a cheaper hotel, and it was in a Muslim community. And there was a lot of nightlife going on. There was a lot of cafes and bars and stuff. And it was really interesting to me to be out at night there and to see the population on the streets. Some streets would just close off and people were able to walk around and a lot of nightlife going on and things like that. And mixed in, there were a tremendous amount of Muslims that were wearing traditional Muslim garbs, hijab and so forth. But it was interesting to watch, especially the women, because they would sometimes have the hijab on, but very pretty dresses. Many of them, not everybody. People were different. Some had just were totally covered, but a number. And they were just walking around like young girls might do from any culture. And they were out there. They were in the bars, and they were just talking to guys and doing what any young people do anywhere. And I hadn't recognized that, but I guess when you're in a population that's very heavily Muslim, you see probably more of that, and you see things that the prejudice that we have against Muslims don't show. There were signs like this around Brussels. These were just like, I assume they were like city-owned things that had announcements on them. and a number of them are these anti-Trump things. And there was a lot of talk about Trump, and just on news media and everywhere, that he, just the kind of stuff that's here, that he's not too bright, that he he just does whatever he wants, he tweets a lot, all this kind of stuff. He's sexist, he's homophobic, he's racist, he's all these kinds of things, which are all true. But they're there too. And when Trump came, it was very interesting to watch the news. There's another picture of an area in the U.S. is everywhere.
Multinationals are everywhere.
Multinationals are everywhere, but a lot of the multinationals are based here. This is on Wednesday, the World Peace Council event. None of the alternative summits were that large. They were good. They were all very good. And there were people from 17 countries in that room. Most of them were from Europe. A lot were from Greece. The World Peace Council has a big following in Greece. The Greek Peace Council, I guess it would be. The heavy-set guy with the white shirt in front, he's from Greece. And to his left is a woman who is the president of the World Peace Council, and she's from Brazil. So there were a couple from Latin America that were there, and there were 2 people from Nepal that were there. And everybody else was from the United States. These are 2 people which I helped get there. These people come from Odessa. In 2014, there was a coup in Odessa. The U.S. and the news media don't project it as a coup, but there was. A democratically elected government in Ukraine was overthrown. It was a very violent coup, and there were a lot of people who were in the leadership who were extreme right-wingers. These people came from Odessa. That year in Odessa, there had been kind of a 24/7 demonstration at a building called the House of Trade Unions that was opposed to the coup. And they held that demonstration. And it was a thorn in the side of the government that these people were staying out in opposition to this demonstration. And the total eastern part of Ukraine, they would not even let the government in. They have their own independent areas there now. But in Odessa, which is part of the area that Kiev runs, there was a strong movement that was opposed to this fascism. And so there was a football game that took place, soccer game that took place in Odessa, and these right-wingers from groups called the Svoboda Party and the Right Sector. And the Right Sector are people that wear swastikas, they do fascist salutes, and they're real fascists. Although when we called them fascists on one of the news things that we put out, we got a reply back from them, and they said, "We're not fascists, we're Nazis." So that man on the right is one of the leaders of something that has become known as the Mothers Committee. When these footballers were having this football game in Odessa, they kind of called the right sector people to come to Odessa to wipe out the vermin, to wipe out these people that were protesting at the House of Trade Unions. And they came in vast numbers, and strangely the police disappeared when they came. And they had Molotov cocktails, and they had guns, and they had clubs, and they set the House of Trade Unions on fire, and they killed 40-something and wounded over 100. And that man on the right, his 20-year-old son was one of the people that was killed. So he helped form this thing called the Mothers Committee. The Mothers Committee is of relatives of people that were killed there, basically, and they've been the focus of the anti-fascist movement in Odessa. And last year, on May 2nd, the anniversary of the attack on these people, they were going to have a memorial for them and a demonstration against the rise of the right in Ukraine. And the right wing said they were going to mobilize and not allow it to happen. So they had to discuss whether or not they should go ahead with it because they were afraid of another massacre. And they decided to go ahead with it, but they decided to call for allies from around the world to come to Odessa to help them out. And people did come from European countries and from the United States. UNAC sent 3 people to get there. And strangely, the 3 UNAC people got in from the United States. All the Europeans were not allowed into the country. And so they held a demonstration and a memorial, and there were thousands of people came out for it. And the right wing did show up, but they only had about 100 people. And they marched through the center of the demonstration in a very provocative way, and the people let them march and did not challenge them. But they were not able to stop the demonstration. That guy is one of the leaders of that movement. And so when we went there, we made connections with them, and because of our connections, we started something called UNAC. It started the Odessa Solidarity Movement. There's some pamphlets for it there, and right next to it is some documentation that they put out on the rise of fascism in Ukraine. You might want to just look through that and see some of the things you'll see. You'll be really startled what you see there, because you just didn't think that people like this still exist. Not just in the streets, but in the government. And it's a government supported by the United States. Why do they care about Ukraine? Ukraine has the largest border with Russia. As they surround Russia, this is one of the things. Also in Crimea was the only warm water port that Russia had, so they wanted Crimea. There's a whole story about Crimea we can go into, but I don't want to go into Ukraine too much. So these people came to the meeting and spoke, and I was really glad to meet them because we were on the campaign for that guy on the right because they arrested him in Odessa for his activity, and somehow he got out the week before this conference, and he and the other man came together to Brussels to protest with us at the NATO conference. That's me speaking there. That's actually a video. If you have Facebook, you can go to my Facebook page and you can play that video and you'll hear the talk I gave, which was well received there. And after the meeting, we went and people started collecting for the march. And I marched with the World Peace Council contingent because I was just with them. And that's their contingent forming for the march. That's another contingent that was forming. I was taking these pictures as everybody is just kind of forming up. That's a group called the ILPS, which stands for the International League of People's Struggle. And the reason I took that picture is because ILPS has a chapter in the United States and they're a member of UNAC. So I took that picture and I sent it back to a woman who's one of their leaders here, and she recognized some of those people, so she wanted to say hello, so I took their picture. There was a really great, energetic movement against the blockade of Cuba, which Trump wants to reinstitute. It's never been taken down, but reinstitute the travel bans and so forth that haven't been taken down. So a lot of Americans and others have now been meeting with Cubans and seeing Cubans and going to their rallies and going to May Day and going to different events. I went down to Cuba too, and it's an eye-opening to do that. And I don't think they want too many people to do that. But they had this one contingent there, so I took their picture for the stopping the blockade. And you can see people in medical stuff in the beginning. They had a lot of medical people from Belgium, because the medical care in Cuba is well known and well respected. In that poor country, everybody has medical care. In this rich country, everybody doesn't have medical care. This is another group that was forming up. That's an Italian group. This is the Committee Against War from Milan in Italy. I don't have too many pictures of that stuff. This is the next day, the conference that was the No to War, No to NATO conference that took place. This is some of the people at the conference. The demonstration, by the way, was estimated by the police and the organizers at 12,000, which meant, and I was told by the people from No to War and the World Peace Council, that Chicago still has the record of the largest anti-NATO demonstration ever. This is at that conference, and at the podium there is Ann Wright. And if people don't know Ann Wright is, there was a movie once, it was called Black Hawk Down. People remember that movie? That was about intervention the United States did, where there was a lot of urban guerrilla warfare against U.S. troops in Somalia. And Ann Wright was one of the commanders of our troops in Somalia at that time. She was part of that, on what I would call the wrong side. Although the movie, of course, glorified the U.S. side of that. And she went on. She was a colonel in the military. She worked in the Pentagon. She was a very high official. And at the time of the Iraq War, she was working as the under ambassador to the country of Mongolia. And when she saw what was happening in the Iraq War, she said, "I've had enough," and she quit. And she thought that after all these years, by her quitting, she wasn't going to get her pension. But she was able to get her pension, and she now uses that to travel all over the world, all over the country, to speak against the war. And she'll be at the Grand Conference in 2 weeks.
Is that David Swanson?
No, David Thompson wasn't there. No. That guy has earphones on because these conferences were basically held in English. Because English is the most common language in the world because it's the language of empire, British Empire and the U.S. Empire. But not everybody speaks English. So at least it was translated into French here, because in Belgium, French is the primary language, but others speak German and others speak Dutch. The guy next to him, with his hand up like that, is a leader of the group called Stop the War Coalition in Britain, which is the major anti-war coalition in Britain. It's the UNAC type group that's in Britain. Now, I spoke at this conference too, and I spoke on a panel on the expansion of NATO. And the other person on the panel with me was this young guy from Montenegro. Montenegro is a small little country. It's smaller in population than the capital district is in population. And it has a population that's 80% against going into NATO by their last poll. But it has a leadership that wants to go into NATO because we promised them all sorts of goodies, military weapons, and all sorts of other things. And so there's a struggle going on in Montenegro. He's one of the leaders of that struggle. And he too was arrested in Montenegro for his work against NATO. And he too was let out right before this conference, and he was able to speak. And he was interested. I spoke there too on the expansion of NATO. Let me just give you a couple of facts. NATO was founded in 1949, and it was really made to kind of counter the influence of the Soviet Union that seemed to be growing. It was originally started with 12 countries. 10 of them were from Europe, and then the United States and Canada. in 1991, Soviet Union collapsed. And, well, 16 years after the start of NATO, the Soviet Union launched something called the Warsaw Pact countries. 8 countries that were around and in the Soviet sphere of influence formed the Warsaw Pact. And in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed, and you'd think there would be no need for NATO. At that time, we made a promise to the Soviet Union that they would leave East Germany, get their troops out of East Germany, and that we would not expand NATO into the Warsaw Pact countries or into the Soviet republics. Since that time, NATO has grown from the initial 12 countries to 28. Those 28 include all the countries we said we would not go into, including Albania, Bulgaria, Croatia, Czech Republic, Estonia, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, Slovenia, Slovakia, and Montenegro is another one that they want to have in and will probably be voted in very soon. So we never kept that promise.
What year was that promise made?
1991.
I've heard that a number of times, but I don't know, I've never seen the documentation of that.
Yeah, well, it was never done in a treaty, but it has been written down, and you can look that up. In fact, I have done that at one point, and I don't have it in front of me, but Michael, if you're interested, I can find it again and send it to
It
you.
was B.W.
I'm not sure who it would have been.
First senior president.
So, anyway, we have expanded, and now they want to go into Ukraine and into a number of other countries as well. We have Russia surrounded right now with military bases, and we do military war games right on their border. We have missiles, which we call a missile defense system, right on their border. Russia believes that this is really a first strike capacity. They believe the purpose of it is so that if the U.S. does a first strike against them, these missiles could intercept anything that that might come out. So it allows the U.S. for a first strike capacity. There's a lot of anti-Russian sentiment that we hear now, and you know, a lot of it is centered around the elections. And I know this is going a little afield, but I think part of it is to justify the reason why Hillary Clinton lost. Rather than saying there was a reason, Hillary Clinton was the most disliked candidate that ever ran for president by the polls of anyone that ever ran for president, with the exception of Donald Trump. So we took like the worst people we could get, and as a result, the majority of people who were eligible to vote stayed home on election day. There was nobody that really turned up their enthusiasm like someone like Bernie Sanders might have done. You know, and one of the things I brought and showed to some of the folks in Belgium was this thing here. You can't maybe see from where you are, but it's Time magazine, and it shows a really, you know, menacing-looking menacing-looking Putin, and it says here, Putin wants to undermine faith in the U.S. U.S. elections. Don't fall for it, it says. Well, I went back and dug up another Time magazine from the time the Soviet Union was collapsing. And there is Yeltsin carrying an American flag, and the title there says, "Yanks to the Rescue, the secret story of how American advisors helped Yeltsin win." The U.S. interferes in the elections of every country in the world.
Right.
We make parties. You know, what I just said about the Ukraine and the coup that went in there. Well, we build up parties that are opposition parties if we don't like the people that are in government. We use economic sanctions and economic pressure to make their economies go bad because we have that kind of economic strength. And so that people will turn against the government and go the way we want them to go, a more favorable government to Wall Street and Washington. And if that doesn't work, we do coups. We still have a name for it, gunboat diplomacy. We do coups in one country after another. And if that doesn't work, we do regime change in one country after another. So, anyway, this is the reality of the United States today and NATO as we surround Russia. And surrounding Russia is a very, very dangerous thing because unlike Iraq and Afghanistan, which are poor countries with small militaries, or Syria or Libya, it's a country with a very strong military. It's a holdover from the time it was the Soviet Union. That's a nuclear military. So when we talk about surrounding Russia, we're talking about the possibility of nuclear war, which is not something that we can get away from. It's something that destroys humanity. Or when we talk about that with China, where we have the pivot to Asia, we call it, where we're trying to surround China. Or our armada that went to North Korea. You know, North Korea, we all know because we listen to the media, that they're a danger. They've shot up these missiles. You know, it's legal for them to shoot missiles. Just like it is legal for the United States to shoot missiles. Do you know how many countries since the Korean War the North Koreans have attacked? 0. How many have we attacked? You know, during the Korean War, we killed 1/3 of the population of that country. We bombed just about every standing building. Then we started bombing the dams to flood them out, which is a war crime. You're not allowed to bomb dams. We have military surrounding that country. We've just put THAAD missiles over the new government, which is not very favorable to the United States and South Korea. Is saying we don't want the THAAD missiles anymore. We just put THAAD missiles there. We have war games twice a year right on the border of North Korea. The last one had 250,000 military personnel, 250,000. And we had flyovers of planes with nuclear weapons in them. Twice before they made treaties, North Korea with the United States, they would stop development of a nuclear weapon. We would stop the war games, get rid of the missiles, and stop the threats. They stopped the development of their nuclear weapons, and we didn't stop the threats, so they went back to it again. They still have that on the table, that if we will do those things, they will stop the development. So how easy would it be to stop that threat if we really wanted to? But do we want to? And that's the thing, you know, with NATO and with war, it's become such an integral part of our economy, of our system. Without the military-industrial complex selling weapons everywhere, imagine what the unemployment rate would be. Imagine if all the soldiers came home. We have military in 130 countries around the world. We have 20 times the number of foreign military bases as every other country in the world combined. Imagine if they all came home. Would they have jobs? We have 25% of the world's prison population. And another 2.2 million people keeping them in prison. Imagine if those prisoners, we only have 5% of the world's population. Imagine if the bulk of them were let out and big unemployment. War is essential. As we automate more and more, you talk about driverless cars, driverless trucks, driverless buses. Even more employment. More and more is essential to everything that we do. And it's detrimental to everybody in the world. So it's important when we go overseas and we meet with colleagues and friends and anti-war activists and like-minded people in every country. Because as Trump tries to build walls, we try to build bridges. because the policy of war, the policy of NATO, the policy of the U.S. war machine is a policy which is against the interest of all people around the world. And because of that, we have the potential. It's very difficult because they have the media and they have the money, but we have the potential to win over and mobilize people to work in their own interest. And if we did that in the kind of numbers that we have, and if the people understood their interest, we could stop these wars no matter what they do, just by putting our hands in our pockets and not cooperating. Just like during the Vietnam War when soldiers were refusing to fight. We could do that again. And so that's why we went to Brussels. That's why we're holding a conference in 2 weeks, national conference, and we have people from many countries there. I encourage people, if they can make it to Richmond, Virginia, to come down. Let me just stop there. If there's any questions, you know, it was a far-ranging discussion, but any questions on anything, we can talk. Yes?
Can you elaborate a little more on the Ukraine, like why did the United States participate in the overthrow?
Well, we want all these countries to relate to the West, not relate to Russia. The main party that was in power there was called the Party of Regions. It was the largest party in Ukraine. The second largest party was also one that wanted them to relate more to Russia, and that was the Communist Party. It was the second largest party. Both of those parties are now outlawed. So the U.S. wanted them in NATO, so we could keep on encroaching. The United States, I believe, needs. I believe we're in a real economic crisis, to tell you the truth. And I believe it needs to do the kinds of things that it is starting to do economically, such as we talk about globalization, these globalization deals, and neoliberalism, where they go and they privatize things all around the world, and they take resources from countries, you know, use cheap labor in other countries. They need to do that to keep the economy going and to keep it so there's not a revolt in this country, to tell you the truth, in my opinion. And there are certain blocks of countries that are really outside of their sphere of influence. Cuba is one, Venezuela is one, Bolivia is one, Iran is one, North Korea is one, China is one, Russia is one. So these are the countries we define as our enemies. It's one of the reasons I believe we do regime change all over the place, because we want to get them under the total, full dominance of Wall Street and the United States. And Russia's going to be a big nut to crack, they know that. And so little by little they're doing this kind of thing of surrounding and so forth. And so they wanted a pro-Western government in there. And we remember what happened in Maidan. They had these protests, kind of like we had with the Occupy movement. So some people went into a big square in Kiev and they started a protest. Right away, the right wing started coming in and started leading this in a very violent type of direction. In all these countries, there's problems. There's poverty, there's unemployment, there's problems. And you could build upon those, and especially if you have economic sanctions or, And so they started building, but the right wing came and took the leadership. And then we saw Victoria Nuland, she was Undersecretary of State. She all of a sudden shows up in Kiev, and she goes to Maidan and basically gives out cookies and things to eat and says, what you're doing is great, keep on going, we hope you overthrow the government. And then we got her on a phone conversation where she was discussing who should be the next president of the Ukraine. And it was this guy Yatsenuk. The Germans thought someone else should be the president, but this is what. So the U.S. had this plan. We thought there was a lot of gas to be fracked in the Ukraine. Ukraine is the largest country in Europe. It has the largest border with Russia. It had the only freshwater port that Russia had. Now it has better ports because of not better ports, but other ports. Because of global warming, the ice is in the Arctic region is giving up, and so now they can have ports that go in the winter, which they weren't able to have before. When they did this, these right-wingers came into power, and the very first thing they did was to ban the Russian language. In Ukraine, you've got large populations that have historical roots to Russians that are Russian nationality. And Russian is the largest language spoken, not Ukrainian. The largest language spoken is Russian in Ukraine. They first banned that. The United States said, hey, you can't do that, that doesn't look good, so they withdrew it. But there was this anti-Russian feeling in the areas of the countries where there was a lot of Russians, such as Crimea and the Donbass, the extreme east, the Donetsk and Lugansk. They rebelled against the coup that took place. And they really have formed in Lugansk and Donetsk, they formed their kind of semi-independent regions, and they govern themselves, and they don't follow Kiev. And Kiev has sent in troops to try to stop them, so they have armed themselves and they're fighting back with these militias, but they basically control that area. In the Crimea, which we say Russia stole from them, Crimea was part of Russia historically. In 1956, when there was the Soviet Union and Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, Khrushchev, who was Ukrainian, was the head of the Soviet Union. And kind of as a gift to his old country, he gave them Crimea. But there was still basically a Russian population. It didn't really mean much then because it's still basically the same country. They're all part of the Soviet Union. But when the Soviet Union broke, they now are part of Ukraine. And so they were in Ukraine. And there was always some kind of resistance to that in there. But when this anti-Russian stuff started coming out after the coup, they took a vote. So we want to go back. And Russia said, okay, you can go back. Because Russia wanted also to keep that port, to keep that Navy port. And for the United States to think they were going to give that up was a tremendous thing. They thought they were going to be able to take their only one water port, and this would be another encroachment on Russia. That wasn't going to happen. Now, we try to say that Russian troops are in the Donbass and Russian troops went into Crimea. There were Russian troops in Crimea. By treaty with Ukraine, they were able to have 25,000 people at their base in Sevastopol in Crimea, that warm water Navy base. They were able to have 25,000 troops. They didn't have 25,000. They had 17,000 at the time of the coup in Ukraine. And they didn't send in others at all. And those troops did not play a role in going out and trying to wrest the power centers from them. But they took a vote, and it was overwhelming to go back to Russia. And there are no Russian troops in Donbass. There are some Russians. Individual Russians have gone there. It was always an easy flow across the border between Donbass and Russia. Families were on one side and families were on the other side. And so they went and fought. Like in the United States, when the fascists were rising up in Spain, the United States and other countries sent people to help the government of Spain, as Germany and Italy were helping the fascists build an army in Morocco and come back into Spain to try to take Spain back from the democratically elected socialist government that was there. And so, because they didn't have the tanks and the planes and so forth that these other people were getting from Russia and Italy, who were fascist governments at that time and were supporting the rise of fascism in Europe, troops came. The Abraham Lincoln Brigade, Germany. The Abraham Lincoln Brigade came from the United States. So people went over there individually and fought. And they came from Britain and they came from other countries also. So there's a historic thing that's happened. That happened in our Revolutionary War too. French came and fought. Yes.
Joe, what do you think is Trump and Putin's relationship and assassination? What's your theory on that?
I don't know. I think it's built up to be more than it is.
Okay.
And I think it's a very good idea that we talk to Russia,
Yeah.
and that we talk to China, and that we talk to these leaders that we're supposedly in conflict with. I think the way to solve these things is through talking, negotiations, and other ways. I mean, instead of more and more war and more weapons and more fight terrorism and all this kind of stuff, we sent a fraction of the money we spend on war to build roads, and build irrigation systems, and do things like that. Which, by the way, China is doing a lot now. China's making friends. In Europe, there's new Silk Road, they're calling. They're building infrastructure in cities going all the way into Europe now. And they're trying to make friends in that way. But if we had done that, that would be the way. I'm not against talking with the ultimate. And other countries have always played a role in our election. You got to put, what is AIPAC? AIPAC is the lobbying organization for Israel. And every politician dutifully has to go from them and kind of pledge their loyalty to Israel. But that's okay. But this Russian thing supposedly is not okay. So, you know, and it's 24/7 in our news media right now. Why? Is it, you know, I mean, it's
Because then we can't pay attention to what they're really doing.
or what the emails were. Suppose instead of hacking, as has been said by WikiLeaks, that it was really a leak, that someone leaked this information from the Democratic National Committee. And the reason they leaked the information, according to WikiLeaks, and according to an English diplomat who says he's the one that actually delivered this leaked information to WikiLeaks, instead of hacking by the Russians, if you looked up what the content was, you don't have to look at the content. You just say, well, the thing is not what they said, it's what they did. It's like what they did with Chelsea Manning. Chelsea Manning exposed war crimes the U.S. did. We never dealt with those war crimes. We just dealt with this person spied, we have to put him in jail for 30 years. Or the stuff that Edward Snowden did. He showed that the U.S. government spies on every single American through our internet and phone usage. Every one of us. But you don't have to deal with that. You say, oh, you heard U.S. policy versus Russia and all this kind of stuff. It's the same thing there. I mean, I remember when Hillary Clinton was running against Bernie Sanders. In California, they had the primary. And Hillary Clinton had a rally with a couple of hundred people. They covered the rally, word for word. At the same time, Bernie Sanders had a rally with 40,000 people. And they mentioned that he had a rally too. If you wanted to beat Trump, if you wanted to beat the Republicans, you needed to galvanize that kind of sentiment that was looking for a change and looking for a new way of looking at things. And the young people. And when you didn't do that, and you said, we're sticking the same old, and if you don't like it, it's better than what he is, it's not going to work. So I think it was to hide the fact that came out with these emails, that the Democratic Party helped to sabotage Bernie Sanders' election and favored Hillary Clinton. Tulsi Gabbard, who was on the Democratic National Committee, who was a congressperson and an Iraq War veteran, and was a Bernie supporter, she quit the Democratic National Committee over that thing. And others, you know, had similar reactions. But so I think that's the thing, and this whole covering of Russia. But what it also does is whenever you want to go to war with someone, you vilify them. And you say, they don't have democratic rights, they don't have this. We're going to bring, the great white knight is going to come, and we're going to bring these democratic rights. When we start vilifying Russia like this, and nuclear power, what are we talking about? Where are we going? When we start surrounding them and doing war games in sight of their border, in some of these countries that now are not NATO countries, it was part of the NATO expansion. What are we talking about? What, we'd go to war with Russia, and for what? So, you know, that's a lot of what this Russian stuff is, and I think it's dangerous, in my opinion. Thanks.
I'd like to comment on the attacks on Trump over meetings between his people and Russian ambassadors, spies, and so on. I remember during the Cuban Missile Crisis that John F. Kennedy used back-channel communication with Khrushchev in order to cool the
Thank God.
and use them basically to say, okay, you take those missiles back to Russia, and we'll do two things. We'll take down some missiles aimed for Russia from Turkey, and we won't attack Cuba.
Yep.
Now, I think he got killed over that, but that's my own conspiracy theory. But I think it was it prevented nuclear war. Now, my problem is, I mean, I sort of hate to defend people like Sessions for secretly negotiating with Russians, if indeed he did it for that. Assume that that's reliable. But my feeling is that, you know, if I really believe that Trump was interested in peace with Russia for its own sake, then he wouldn't be building up his nuclear arsenal, he wouldn't be buying new warships and so on. I think he wants relations with Russia for purely commercial reasons.
Look, I don't support Trump at all. Yeah, I think Trump is he moves in the direction of fascism, like we're saying, growing in Europe. You know, he's a racist and he's Islamophobe. And I don't support Putin either. I don't support either of those people. You know, just like I didn't have to support Saddam Hussein in Iraq to be opposed to the Iraq War.
Yeah.
You know? So it's saying that, don't take in any sense, I hope you don't. Trump went over to NATO and demanded that NATO countries all raise their military spending. He wants to raise the military spending in this country by $54 billion. It's only a fraction of what we spend. But you know, that's just about equivalent to the entire military budget of Russia. 54 billion. And that's what he just wants to raise it by. And I don't support anything. He wants to privatize the air traffic controllers. Jeez. This is just a continuation of what happened under Reagan. When he tried to smash the air traffic controllers. What's he going to privatize next? They want to put someone in the head of education who wants to privatize education. She doesn't think there should be public schools. If you can't pay to go to school, I come with you. I don't, of course, don't support any of that, not at all. You know,
it just seems to be the wrong thing to be approving.
what? Yeah, no, look, he dropped the medal of all bombs, he called it, on Afghanistan. The longest war I've ever been in. 16 years it's been going. He added more troops to Syria, troops on the ground. He added more troops to Iraq. And the Mosul U.S. bombing has killed hundreds and hundreds of civilians. He did an invasion of U.S. troops into Yemen and basically destroyed a village there. He's a very pro-war candidate. I, in no sense, think, as some people did, that, you know, this Russia with Russia was going to mean something in terms of less war. It doesn't at all. And, you know, so, anyway. Yes?
Was there a discussion at the conference about what structure the countries in Europe would go to, say, NATO was disbanded? There's a lot of neo-fascism and nationalism going on, and there's a BRIC set, so Britain is leading the Euro nations. What's to prevent that from unraveling and there being national wars and boundaries in Europe, as we experienced in World War II, World War I? Is there concern about that among the groups, and what would they see as their future vision to stop the balkanization of all of Europe? And we saw when the Warsaw Pact dissolved and there was a terrible war in Yugoslavia.
And who conducted that war?
Well, I'm sure we had a lot
NATO and U.S. That's who conducted the war. And there was a lot of bombing. And the whole balkanization had happened under the...
How would they prevent further fracturing, Joe?
Oh.
Is there any discussion about that?
No.
Are there concerns about it in neo-fascism?
No, they think NATO should be disbanded. Everybody there thinks NATO should... There's a lot of concern about the growth of nationalism from the right wing
So
in Europe.
gone,
But that doesn't have to do with
and
NATO in their
if the
mind.
fascist movement decides to take over Luxembourg
Look,
or...
it's the same reason why Trump grew here. They have no solutions for people. Their solutions are the kinds of solutions that we saw in Greece, where it said, let's cut everybody's pension by 50%. Let's cut everybody's wages by 30%. Yeah, and Puerto Rico. These are the only solutions that these capitalist states have today, because capitalism
But
is
what
in
about
trouble.
these people? What solutions do they see to not do the austerity, but to retain
Peace is only one
sovereignty?
piece of the movement that is needed to make a safe and better world, in my opinion. You know, I am a peace activist, and I think that's essential to be a peace activist. I'm also a socialist, and I think that there are no solutions under capitalism anymore for people. And unfortunately, a number of groups that call themselves socialist, like what we saw in Greece, actually become the administrators of the capitalist apparatus and the capitalist state and neoliberal policies. So you can't have, and so people say the left failed, and so we move to the right. And when they say we're in such bad shape, they're open to scapegoating, like it's those immigrants, it's those Mexicans, it's all of that kind of stuff. What really needs to do is you need to build a left, and I think the anti-war movement is part of that left that needs to be built, which can project real solutions to all the problems that people have, and that's the best way you're going to fight these kind of ultranationalist groups that are rising all over Europe and all over the United States and all over the world, you know, in my opinion. Yes.
We know when the next NATO summit is going to be, and will there be another? Are there plans already to have another?
There will be another, and there are plans for the next summit, and I did hear it, but I can't remember when and where, so I can't tell you. So, but we'll find out. And you know what I would really love is when Americans go over to these places, that others come. That would go with a lot of people. You know, it doesn't. The last time UNEX sent people to the NATO thing was the last NATO meeting, which was in Poland, which was a very interesting experience because it's a very right-wing government in Poland now. And it wasn't me that went, it was someone else. But I would love to see a whole delegation going over. people like in this room. You know, we go over together. You know, if you haven't had experience in traveling in these things, you'll do it with people that have had some experience. And you talk to people because you learn an awful lot by doing this and the way people are thinking and so forth. And you become ambassadors for the peace movement. And that's something that we really need.
One other thing, you didn't mention that Brussels is also the seat of the European Union.
Yeah, it is a secret. And
Is there any overlap between things?
I think so, yeah. Typically, that's what you go to NATO and then you go into the European Union. I mean, I think there's a kind of a transmission belt there.
But you didn't.
By the way, I should tell you about the German peace movement. The German peace movement, this demonstration was there with a lot of people. And there was a group of them that were mocking Trump. And their slogan was, Germany, make Germany great again. Yes.
So it's been said that your conference was about dismantling NATO, and then immediately after your conference, Montenegro joined and they...
It hasn't joined yet, but they say it will be joining.
So do we know the details about why Montenegro joined and why we want them and what was traded and
I don't know all the
the structure
details.
of the agreement and anything like that?
It's a complicated story because when Montenegro was part of Yugoslavia was split up in all these different ways. And when it did, Montenegro was one of the small states that, as I understand, I'm not an expert on this at all, but just from talking to that guy that was on the panel with me, was favorable to the Serbs. And that's part of the war that took place in Yugoslavia with NATO at that time. And it's the same guy as the head of now, but he's kind of changed. So he's kind of been bribed to move over. And he basically says the leadership in Montenegro is a mafia. There's a mafia leadership. It's there for the sake of looting. He didn't say exactly what was offered to them, but they, at the beginning, were against going into NATO, and now they're for it, even though polls have showed that 80% in Montenegro are against going into NATO. So, I mean, that's the other side of this. When you hear about these countries doing these things, it doesn't mean that they're supportive of the population for any of this stuff, you know. There's a lot of difference. It's like when I travel overseas sometimes, when I'm an American, they think of me like the American government. And it's hard to, some Americans like to call themselves Canadians. But, you know, I was in Ukraine in 2006, right after the Orange Revolution, it was called. And because me and my partner were there, and we were Americans, some of the, you know, pro-American types were very friendly to us. And they said, well, we want to thank you, your government, for all it did for us during the Orange Revolution, which was the first, before the predecessor came down. And we said, well, what did they do? And we said, well, we provided buses for us to go to Kiev, the government did, and to protest. And we were paid our salaries that we would have to miss. And our bosses were paid for the lost work that we did. That's what the U.S. did. There were 40,000 at the time of my time. There were 40,000 U.S. registered NGOs in Ukraine.
That's how Trump gets borders concerned.
Anyway, yeah.
Do the Montenegrins have an elected government?
I really don't know. I mean, you could look it up. I don't know enough about it.
Because 80% of them are opposed. You know, I would think that, you know, if they could have an election.
When did you get the right to vote on a treaty that the U.S. makes with another government? When did you get the right to vote on the war? You can vote for someone and the government could still do all these policies. Okay, well, thanks for coming.
So,
So,